Hello, everybody. I'm Rikki Smith. Welcome to Faith on Friday
Faith
Presents.
on Friday, step into what's possible with Rikki
At
Smith.
Faith on Friday Presents, our goal is to drive motivation by closing the door on the comfort zone, to foster inspiration by showing you what's possible, and to create transformation by challenging those negative, unproductive mindsets. And while you're here, don't forget, subscribe to this YouTube channel, like our Facebook page, follow us on Instagram, give us a thumbs up, and share this with your network. All right, so today is for all the presenters, the speakers, everybody that has to stand in front of the room. If you are one of those folks and your job is to stand up and present and make sure that what you're presenting is heard, it's clear, and it makes sense, and it also gets people up, moving, buying, or whatever, have you ever struggled with that? Have you ever thought, surely there's got to be another way? Well, today I'm going to introduce you to somebody who's going to tell us all about presenting, why we should, how we shouldn't, and we're going to talk about something called resultations. Woo! Everybody, first of all, say hello to Patti Schutte. Hello, Miss Patti.
Hello. Okay, I'm just going to take that introduction and that energy, and I'm just going to have everybody, the next speech I give, I'm like, here you go. Here's the introduction. You're just going to read Rikki Smith.
I love it, and I will receive it, and we'll talk about royalties later. But, my friend, before we get started, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're located.
Oh, absolutely. So, it's always fun. Do we talk about the professional or the personal side? Kind of mix those together is the way I love to answer that question.
Awesome.
So, first and foremost, I am two things professionally. I'm a math geek and a presentation geek. And you would never think that those two would match, but they do. Which really what that means is from a presentation perspective, I'm very analytical and I work with people who have very analytical mindsets that aren't necessarily known for being brilliant presenters. So if you think of the mathematicians, the engineers, the finance people, even people in medical, they're subject matter experts in something. And then they have these moments where they need to present. And then there's this discongruence. But I relate really well to that because personally, I have a mathematics degree because that's what I thought I was going to do with my life. So a lot of people say, Patty, tell me about yourself. How do you become a presentation strategist? And Rikki always make a joke. Step number one, get a mathematics degree. And then that opens the door to kind of a funny joke and where my life has evolved from there. But on a personal level, Fredericksburg, Virginia, south of the DC area is my home, not actually where I grew up, but where home is right now. I actually grew up in Nebraska. And if any of your viewers are from Nebraska, they know a true Nebraskan because they say we don't bleed red and white, we bleed scarlet and cream
That's right.
is the true colors. But I'm a mom of three, happily remarried to an amazing husband that was 22 years Marines, and that's the main reason that we're in Fredericksburg, Virginia. So that's me a little bit personally and professionally.
Wow, that is a lot going on. First of all, we're going to get into the math geek thing. And second of all, kudos to your husband for his service. We're so grateful, and to the wives and family members that support them. Thank y'all for your service as well. So, Nebraska, we talked earlier when we got on. I actually went to high school in Nebraska, and I went to Bellevue West High School. And you said what exactly now?
Well, so I didn't know what to do with that math degree. But I thought, I guess I'll go become a teacher. But I didn't get a teaching degree. I got a math degree and a teaching endorsement. But my first job was at Logan Fontenelle Middle School in Bellevue, Nebraska. My home was 2 blocks from Bellevue West High School. So I was just shocked when I said I'm from Nebraska, because most of the time I get the joke, what state's that in? And I'm like,
Exactly.
oh my, oh my. But yes, the fact that I can literally tell you exactly how many times I could run around that parking lot
Wow.
to get a mile in at the Bellevue West is
That
just
is
unique.
crazy. Like I said, I don't hear a lot of people say I'm from Nebraska, let alone say I know where Bellevue West High School is. So kudos to us, our Thunderbirds. So, wow, where do we go? So, math degree, presentation skills. Let's skip a little bit. Let's talk about presentations. All right. So, a lot of folks watching, listening, they are presenters. Now, we all know there's a difference between presenting and speaking. Why don't we start there, Patty? What's the difference between somebody who presents and somebody who's a speaker?
Yeah, and I think that's a great place to start because I like to tell people there's a presentation spectrum. And too much, we just lump the skills all into one. So if you think about where I started in my professional career was teaching. That's one side of the spectrum. And you can lump that in with training, facilitating, all of those types of skill sets, whether it's high school students or university students or adults for that matter. But there is that moment when you are truly being a trainer and facilitator. And how do you know it's that moment? Because the load, the learning load on the audience is much higher. In other
Oh.
words, we're wanting to change the skills
Mm-hmm.
and equip that audience with something that they didn't have before.
Mm-hmm.
Where if we jump to the other side, which I've also had many years of experience in once I left teaching, is the other side of that where I talk about we're comedians, we're keynotes, we're standing on a stage
Mm-hmm.
and all the spotlight is on me. And what's the cognitive or thinking load on the audience? It's pretty light. Like they could
Yeah.
take what you have to say or not, but the idea is that you're entertained, you laugh, you have some takeaway. And
Right.
the difference of success on these two sides of the spectrum is different because
Yeah.
one of my mentors, when you're over on this side, said it's not about standing ovations, it's about standing invitations. Am
Oh,
I
very
getting
nice.
invited back to
Mm-hmm.
this stage? But over here, it's different.
Yeah.
Over here, it's how much impact did you have on the learners? How
Yeah.
quickly, how much did they like your learning experience? How much did they be able to go implement that right away?
Mm-hmm.
And then as we
Wow.
move towards this middle part, I call this the world of business in the messy middle. Because for those of us that live on these outside skirts and
Mm-hmm.
we just stay there, then our formulas and things are pretty similar. So we
True.
got teachers, trainers, facilitators,
Mm-hmm.
speakers, comedian, keynotes, and then we have presenters.
Woo.
And what
Wow.
presenters are is this middle part of the spectrum, which
Mm-hmm.
I call the business world,
Mm-hmm.
for lack of better terminology,
Mm-hmm.
or just be too broad, perhaps.
Right.
But the reason I call it the business world is because in the presenter world, you have to go between the two sides.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a lot of expectation on you that
Right.
you know how to be a brilliant deliverer of information.
Mm-hmm.
You know how to have great presentation skills, those things that I can see and touch, nonverbal and verbal.
Mm-hmm.
But you also know how to take whatever your marketing team is telling you have to take, slides, collateral. Sometimes the sales team gives you a script. The VP of
Yeah.
sales says, here's the slide deck, here's the script. You got to follow that.
Mm-hmm.
But you are now having to bring a whole bunch of stuff together.
Yeah.
That's the world of a presenter. They got to bring slides.
Wow.
They got to bring branding strategy. They got to bring marketing. They got to then take their skill set and go do whatever the result needs to be in that moment. And
Mm-hmm.
it is the hardest space to live in my
That's tough.
experience and in my opinion,
Yeah.
because there's so much expected of you and you need a
Mm-hmm.
very large skill set compared to if you're
Yeah.
on the
It's
outskirts.
like juggling all the balls, and one of them is a bowling ball, one's a tennis ball, and one is a ping pong ball. Now make it work. So I love that analogy, that living in the middle. So that being said, Patty, what makes a good presenter? Because, right, we can all present. We've all done the slide thing. We've all had to teach something in the boardroom. We've taught our teams, what's the difference? What
Yeah.
makes a good presenter?
In this space, a good presenter at the highest level knows how to measure results and decide, did my presentation move the audience to the next step or did it
Mm-hmm.
not?
Oh,
And
that's
I
good.
have tangible, measurable evidence
Mm-hmm.
that proves to me, yeah, I did or no, I didn't.
Okay.
So, what's the opposite of that, which you
Mm-hmm.
never want to do? And I don't say never very often, but I will
Sure.
stand on never on this one is you don't go into autopilot and go, oh, I've got this slide deck or take this slide from that presentation and this slide, and I'm going to do what I call the pick, peck, repeat method. I'm going to pick this slide. I'm going to pick that slide. I'm going to peck at them. I'm going to put them all together. And now I have a new slide deck and I go walk in and give it.
Wow. Pick, peck, and what?
Repeat.
Pick, peck, repeat. I'm using that someplace, I don't know where, but I absolutely love that. That is so good. This brings up the thing where you talked about being able to measure the results. Now, you have trademarked something called resultation.
Yep. And that's an interesting story because through my work, and just to tell a quick story, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times, I said, oh, my joke, what do you do to become a presentation strategist? I'm like, oh, you get a math degree. But really, what you do is you evolve your career and you always stay curious and you always say yes. So it doesn't matter
Mm-hmm.
if it was teaching, if I was a decade in direct marketing and made it to the top 2% of that organization,
Wow.
if I was a presenter manager and a VP of professional learning and sales enablement in corporate America for 15 years, everything in my career was about standing in front of an audience or writing curriculum to help an audience or writing a presentation to help an audience
Right.
move towards something.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day in 2011, I picked up a phone and a girlfriend that knew me in corporate America switched jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, Patty, I am now an event manager for a conference. And I said, well, that's
Wow.
cool. What's that job? And so
Mm-hmm.
she explained to me what that job was. Didn't even know. She said, but here's the deal. I've seen what you have done. I've
Mm-hmm.
seen your presenter audition events. I've seen how
Wow.
you equip people quickly and easily. I've got these electrical and mechanical engineers. They are brilliant, but when they go present at my conference, they're not so brilliant. And I
Woo.
need your speaker coaching help. And that
Mm-hmm.
was how my company was birthed.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow. That's so
since
good.
then, fast forward now,
Mm-hmm.
15 years later, which is super exciting. Um, I all through that, I kept asking people the same question. How was your last presentation and how do you know? How
Mm-hmm.
was your last presentation? How do you know?
Yeah.
How are we going to know that this next moment in
So
time
good.
is going to be successful?
Mm-hmm.
And I kept asking that question. And eventually I realized if I had a word for it, because that's how the human brain works, if we
Sure.
have a word for something, it will help people change their mindset and it
Mm-hmm.
will help people change their approach. And so one day I was getting a little frustrated with an executive that will rename nameless. And I said, no, you're missing the point. It's about results and going after a resultation. And all of a sudden I paused and I went, I think I'm onto
I
something.
think, yeah. Hold
Jotted
on,
that
write
word
that
down
down.
and he goes, what did you say? And I said, you have the wrong mindset. He was kind
Mm,
of in that pick, peck, repeat mindset that I'm
yeah.
good. I've done this 1,000 times.
Right.
I'm just going to go in.
Right.
And then on the other hand, he was frustrated on why he wasn't getting more results. I'm like, well, that's why.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I talked about a resultation mindset that
Mm-hmm.
is thinking about you're going into this moment. There is some sort of outcome you want to leave that moment with. Are you
Right.
going in strategically to protect that moment or are you not?
So
And
good.
then that little word and definition was able to change our conversation. And I have since ran with it and
Mm-hmm.
have trademarked it as well.
Yeah, it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Trademark your stuff, girl. Now, you said something else too, because the people that do presentations, you're looking at your physicians, your accountants, your engineers. So I laugh at that because one of my sons is an engineer, and he is hilarious. He's so funny. Bless his heart. He is my child, so I apologize to everyone that hires him. He's brilliant. Now, he is an exception to that engineering rule. He is pretty much a comedian and he does the things. But I know some engineers. Like you said, they are brilliant. They can go outside, tell you why it's raining, and drowned in the process. How do you take these brilliant, beautiful minds and make them powerful presenters with the resultation in mind? How do you get that?
Yeah, and the first part is to understand what's going on in that
Mm-hmm.
mind. You know, it's because there's so many things they can see and take in. And there was a person I was working with, and they actually shared something that an engineer told them is they said,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I feel like my brain is a blender with no lid on top.
Wow, we've all been
It
there.
is
We know what
just
that looks
going and
like.
going and going, and it's just spurting stuff, and they can see
Yeah.
all the stuff, and they can see it down to the smallest minutia detail. And so one thing I found is my resultation method
Mm-hmm.
was created very organically as I was working with subject matter experts because it was taking me
Yeah.
almost 90 minutes to 2 hours just to get to clarity. And I'm like, this isn't going to scale. When I'm supporting
Wow.
200 speakers at a conference, I got
Yeah.
to
Oh
get more
no.
efficient.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did what any good scientist or engineer would do, and they would
Mm-hmm.
start paying attention to what got them results the quickest.
Yeah.
And what I realized is when I said, forget about what you think you need to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Like just I helped them put all, we're gonna just shut this, we're gonna put this in a different blender and shut the lid. Put yourself in that moment in time. So
Yeah.
we did a visualization exercise. Put
Okay.
yourself in that moment in time. What are you gonna wear?
Mm-hmm.
Where are you gonna be standing? What do you think the room's gonna look like? Could be a
Yeah.
virtual room, could be a physical room.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine you're in the last 5 minutes.
Oh my goodness.
What do you want the audience to do with your information that they can do immediately? One
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Yep.
If they forget everything else you say, what are they going to remember? Like the
Mm-hmm.
chorus of a song. You can't remember the verse, but you can remember the chorus. What's
Right.
that?
So good.
And how do you want them emotionally feeling? And when I started with those three questions, I now call it the do, remember, feel, which is
Okay.
phase one of my resultation method. We start with a
Okay.
blueprint, and that's the
Mm-hmm.
first part of the blueprint. Once we could get them clear on that, I said, guess what? You now have your presentation GPS. You know the address.
Yeah, you know where you're going.
You know where you're going. So now you are a subject matter expert. If I say reverse engineering, this is going to totally make sense to you. But I didn't call it
Right.
that at the beginning. But I
Sure.
said it has to directly take your audience to this ending or it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't go in.
That's so good.
And I had
I
one
love that.
engine. Yeah, thank you. And I had one engineer at a conference a few years back. He's like, oh my gosh, Patty, I wish we would have met 30 years ago when my career started. I would have been in a much different place now. And I thought,
Sure.
wow, thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, so that's one of
Brilliant.
my big takeaways when I'm working with
Yeah.
subject matter experts.
I love it. So now you have a whole company that this is what you do. Talk to us a little bit about your company. What's it called?
Yes, it's called Be Brilliant
Hmm.
Presentation Group.
All right.
And of course, we want to give brilliant presentations.
Sure.
So that's where the name came from.
Hmm.
And the company serves from solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, brick and mortar small business owners,
Hmm.
um, and then people that are more in the services, maybe real estate agents,
Sure.
loan officers.
Hmm.
I even have clients who are podcasters. And so that's kind of fun. Yeah. All the way up to medium, small, and large multi-billion dollar enterprises. And
Wow.
we look at their presentation moments in time
Hmm.
and we figure out how can we strategize around them so they get the best results possible.
Yeah, that is so great. It's interesting to hear that because all of us who have been in corporate America for a long time or not and finally gave it up, yay, and we had to give presentations. We did not have this as a system, and it happened just like you said. The marketing team would give you stuff, your boss would give you stuff, your whomever, and you were juggling all these balls, and you had to make it look seamless in a 15-minute presentation in hopes of someone buying your product, helping you support your business, or giving you some sort of financial stuff. And we
Mhm.
had no idea what we were doing, and it never failed. They always picked the person who was either the most gregarious, the one that was the funniest, or somebody who looked the part. But there was no training involved. So when somebody works with you in your group, what kind of things besides what you've given us, what can they look for coming in? Here I am with all my stuff. I know my stuff, but that's about it. What's one of the first things that you tell them, coming in?
Yep. One of the first things I tell them is first of all, we're going to make you you because you need to be brilliant in you. I truly believe, Rikki, every single human being can be a brilliant presenter in
Mm-hmm.
their lane.
Yeah.
Because the thing is people say, "Oh, I don't want to present," like I'd rather die than give a public speak. Those
Oh
are always
gosh,
at
I know.
there's three things that are the top of people's biggest fears: dying, presenting, and interviewing.
Mm-hmm. Crazy.
And the reality though is if we're in the business world, a lot of people will say, Patty, I don't speak. I don't need your services. And I'm
Yeah.
like, do you stand in front of one or more people at any point in time in your
Anytime.
day and you have to
Yeah.
drive them towards a decision? Then you're presenting to some
Yes.
effect. Now,
Mm-hmm.
they'll have different variables of that, but that's one of the first things that you'll experience is
Mm-hmm.
I want you to know that I'm not going to make you anybody else. But what we are going to identify
That's
is
so
we're going to
good.
identify your next 10%.
Mm-hmm.
Because your next
That's
10%
so
that'll give
great.
you a next step up is not the same 10% as somebody else. Because
Right.
maybe that 10% for them is just they need to get clarity on what their boss is asking them to do. I'm working
Yeah.
with a
What are we
client right
doing here?
now. I'm looking at their sales script and he's like, I'm struggling when I get to slide 3. And I go, I know why you are.
Yeah.
Because what if everything they say prior to slide 3 doesn't match when you get to the slide about the
Right.
problems the company solves? Because they're going to look at the slide and go, but I don't have any of those problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The
Um,
scripts can actually murder or help you. And
yeah,
depending on who gave you the script, it
yeah.
will, yeah, it can go either way really fast. That's insane. So you've been doing this now for how long, Patty?
Well, working in the world of presentations,
Mm-hmm.
um, since if you take the teaching years out of it, roughly since 2001,
Wow.
my own business since
That's nice.
2011. Long time.
Still, that is some, girl, that is some expertise. So you've got business owners watching right now. They have to do a presentation coming up directly. They have no idea what to do. They have all the things and my favorite part, we've done this 1,000 times. Whew. Talk to that person for just a few seconds to tell them one thing you think they can do to make this better, different, and get the results that they are needing to go forward.
Yep. Well, one I've already said,
Yeah.
visualize your ending, put
Mm-hmm.
yourself in that ending. What is that audience going to do? Remember, feel. That's the first part.
Mm-hmm.
The second part is if you have the attitude that I've done it 1,000 times, the thing is there's not one time that's ever a repeat of the other. And where I run into the biggest frustration, and when people work with me or don't work with me, but they put all this energy and effort in, or no energy and effort in, then they get to that moment. When that moment in time is the first moment in time they've ever given it, then they wonder why it falls apart. The story I love to
Yeah.
say is, can you imagine and I'm going to date myself here, but can you imagine if Michael Jordan would have just walked in every day, never have practiced,
Oh.
never have done anything, or, we can fast forward to LeBron James or, whoever, Steph Curry, or
Mm-hmm.
the Olympians that we're watching right now.
Yeah.
They put themselves in that moment in time and practiced and practiced and practiced. Now, the
Yeah.
depth of practice is going to vary, but if there's any time I can look at somebody and they say, well, I've done it 1,000 times. Well, did you practice for this time? Because
Right.
I guarantee you, you're already diminishing your results if you haven't. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the other, that do remember, feel, ending. Please practice. And then the third thing I always say is, as soon as you're done, what is measuring something you can truly measure
Mm-hmm.
that says this worked or this didn't?
Yeah.
Too many times we walk away from that moment in time, dust it off and go to the next one. And we haven't put a system in place that helps us evaluate and reflect
Yeah.
and
Did
then
it work?
decide, is this evergreen and we can use it again, or do we need to
Mm-hmm.
make adjustments?
I love that, because a lot about what you do. So all I coach on is public speaking. That's it. But I train with people who are not presenters per se, but those who are the keynote speakers, the classroom speak.
Mhm.
I do public speaking and I tell them a lot of the same things. One of the things you said that I absolutely love is my clients who, oh, I've done it all the time. This is the same talk I always do. I already know how this is going to go. But what I tell them is like Beyonce, I'm not dating myself that much, but it is what it is. Beyonce does the same song every concert, but she sets it up in such a way that that particular audience thinks it's just for them. And you're doing the same thing with your presentation clients.
Mhm.
I love it. See, y'all, it's a thing. It all goes together. I love it. Patty, if somebody wanted to talk to you some more or work with you or even just ask you a question, where's the best place for them to find you?
Well, go to my website, and it's kind of long, but it's all spelled out. Be Brilliant Presentation Group.com. And when you land on the homepage, you'll know when you're in the right place because right on the header it says we help you maximize results from your presentations. But there's two key things you can do. At the very top, I have a micro course that you can sign up. It's a complimentary micro course. It's 5 videos that'll come to you, one each day, which will be, hey, you got a presentation coming up. Here's some 5 things you should be doing. And then right in the middle of that homepage, there's a Let's Chat button. If you click on Let's Chat, that will take you right to a calendar. And in my company, you get Patti. You're not going to go to some sales thing, but when it says Let's Chat with Patti, you will literally see my calendar, and
Love
it
it.
may take a day or two, a week or two, depending on how busy I am. But we'll sit down and we'll talk about your presentations and where you may have an opportunity to apply a resultation mindset instead. So that's the best place to reach and connect.
I love it. Don't worry, everybody. If you did not get her contact information, everything is going to be in the description below. And don't forget, subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our Facebook page, follow us on Instagram, give us a thumbs up, and share this with your network. Patti, my friend, before I let you go, we got to play a game. Woo! I love this. This game is called This or That. It is so simple. I'm going to give you the choice of a few things, and you just tell me which one you like the best. Are you ready to play, my friend?
Yeah, I feel like I need to have one of those little paddles, like that says this or that.
I'm loving it. I'll keep that in mind. I like it. But let's get started.
This or that, this or that. Make your choice, no looking back. This or that.
Okay.
All right. Yellow light. Speed up or slow down?
I'll be honest, speed up.
I love that. I love the honesty about people. Read the book or see the movie?
Ooh, read the book.
Oh, very nice. We're still reading. I love that. That's important. The Super Bowl, the game or the commercials?
Depends on who's playing.
Okay, who's your team?
Oh, I grew up in Nebraska. I'm sorry, everyone's gonna boo me, but I am a Chiefs fan. Everyone
Thanks
was
for
like,
coming,
oh, it's so
Patti.
nice
No,
to
I'm
have
kidding.
somebody that's not the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. So this particular year, I was very into the commercials.
Okay, yeah, me too, because my team got out.
Or
I'm
the
an Eagles
halftime
fan.
show. Honestly, I really do like those.
Yeah, it depends on who's halftime in it, but I agree with that. All right, extra fries or exercise?
Okay. Do we have a third option that's like skip all and give me the veggies?
Absolutely not. Thank you
Okay, fine,
very much.
side.
Of course, it's your party. You can do whatever you want. All right, night owl or morning person?
Night owl. I have a pair of pajamas that says I don't do mornings.
Okay, all right. I need to find those on Amazon someplace. And finally, my friend, what would you tell your 13-year-old self right now?
Don't be so critical. Stay curious because life is an amazing journey.
And drop the mic. Everybody, that's it. Patti, thank you so much for being here today. This was great.
Thank you, Rikki. This has been a complete joy, and I feel like I could have kept going forever. Thank you for being such an accommodating host and for the invitation. It's been wonderful.
My joy, my pleasure. All right, everybody, that's it for this week. But don't worry, we'll be back next week with more Faith
Step
on
into
Friday
what's
presents.
possible.